A calm sea is an illusion. There is always the unexpected lurking just below the surface. And when chaos erupts, some can swim to the shore, while others will sink into the abyss. Your host, Chris Cain, is an insurance adjuster and also an agent licensed in multiple states. He spent over 30 years helping people with claims, and this podcast is to help business owners, supervisors, and employees to be prepared before and after a work comp injury occurs. Batten down the hatches and join us as we navigate the sea of confusion.
Hello, I'm Chris Cain, and I'm excited to be here with you. In today's episode, we're going to talk about certificates of insurance, which is usually just called a COI. This topic is very important to anyone who uses subcontractors, so join us for a few minutes and let's talk about what it is, why you need it, what happens if you don't get certificates, and just simply break down each section of a COI. I want to welcome some new listeners to the podcast. We have some students that are interested in learning about what we are talking about, and one that is considering a career in insurance, which I think is great. So quickly, I want to help them understand what we're talking about today with general contractors and subcontractors, and then we'll get into the podcast. For those new to insurance, a general contractor is the person in charge of the entire project. They cannot do it all themselves, so they contract, meaning they have an agreement regarding employment with a subcontractor. When you think of a subcontractor, think about a person that comes in to do a specific job like a plumber, heating and air, electrician, roofer, etc. You will also hear terms like named insured and certificate holders. The named insured is anybody that has insurance, whether it's a person or a business. A certificate holder is a person or business requesting and receiving a certificate of insurance, which is a document that verifies insurance coverage from a named insured. Imagine for a minute you're a general contractor and you have your subcontractors working at a house. The subcontractor is a roofer and climbs up an unsteady, unsafe ladder to the rooftop. The ladder wobbles and he falls backwards and lands head first against the ground. Now everybody's in a panic. The ambulance takes the subcontractor to the hospital, and the hospital staff ask if this is a workers' compensation claim. To avoid confusion of coverage, meaning who's paying the bill, the general contractor or anybody that uses subcontractors should have on hand a certificate of insurance form for each subcontractor they will use before a project begins. Let me make it clear. I don't care if you used a subcontractor in the past and had a certificate from them before, you need to get a new certificate of insurance before each project because coverages and the states they are covered for can change between jobs. The certificate of insurance really only reflects the date that the certificate is issued at a point in time on what coverages are in force. You need to keep these certificates on file and easily accessible. In this situation, the general contractor could simply give a copy of the COI to the hospital, and the hospital would deal with the subcontractor's insurance company. Easy breezy. Makes it simple. However, if you didn't get a COI, and let's just say the subcontractor is undergoing emergency surgery and can't speak, the hospital is going to want the general contractor's insurance information until the updated information is given. Now, this is when you start hoping the subcontractor has appropriate coverage because if they don't, guess who's going to get stuck with the bill? This is what you want to avoid. It is way easier to just get the COI beforehand instead of putting yourself in this situation. This is why learning all you can about certificate of insurance is so important because we're not just talking about needing a COI for an injury. We're also talking about COIs in case a subcontractor does any major structural damage at a job site as well. Let's start off with just a basic understanding of what a COI is. A certificate of insurance is a one-page, sometimes two-page document that shows the named insured's business name, address, and their insurance agent's name and address. This is usually on what is called an accord form, which is just a brand of form used in the insurance industry. It has their insurance carrier's name, policy numbers, policy effective dates, and policy amounts. Then we get into the more detailed parts of the COI with additional insured, waiver of subrogation, notice of cancellation, and description of operations. And we're going to break all of this down. Additional insured on the COI is a column marked with an X, but it's a very important section and you need to understand what it means. If someone simply asks for a COI and they do not need additional insured listed, then the COI is simply a snapshot of your coverage for them to know you have insurance. If the person asking for a COI wants you to mark additional insured on your COI, it is to protect them from filing a claim with their own insurance, especially if you are the cause of the accident or damage. The additional insured status on the COI gives the certificate holder specific rights when it comes to a claim, rights to legal counsel, and sometimes against third-party claims and the right to recover damages. For example, you're a plumber. A general contractor needs you to go to a house to work on the pipes. The general contractor gets a COI from you with the additional insured mark. You go to the house and there's also someone laying flooring and someone installing a heat and air unit. You don't know the other people, but all three of you were contracted by the general contractor. So while you're working on the pipes, and the next day you return to the house and find a major leak that has damaged the flooring and leaked through the floor, damaging the ceilings in the floor below it. Additional insured marked on your COI, all that damage will be filed under your policy. The general contractor does not use their own insurance. Now, when someone asks you to be an additional insured, you need to make sure you understand exactly what they're asking for, because there are two different types. There is an additional insured that we just talked about, and is the most common asked for with certificates. However, there is another which is called additional named insured. Two different things. Additional insured versus additional named insured. Let's talk about it a minute. An additional named insured is more complex. This means you are putting them on your policy and your coverage is 100% available to that additional named insured. That means if they personally get injured or they cause an accident or structural damage, then they have access to your coverage as if it was their own coverage. But you're the one that's paying the premium. I know some of your larger companies have experience with this. It's in the contract and you've done this before and understand what it means. But for smaller companies who do not deal with a lot of certificates, you really need to talk to your agent if somebody is requesting a COI from you and wanting additional insured on the certificate. And especially, let me say it again, especially call your agent if someone is requesting additional named insured on your policy. Let's look at another section of the COI that's called subrogation waived. Again, on the COI is just a column simply marked with an X. But let's talk about what it really means. A certificate holder would ask for this to be marked on a COI to avoid being held liable for claims on the job site, even if they are partially negligent. It's a big benefit for the certificate holder, but it prohibits your insurance carrier from recovering money they paid out on if there's a claim. Why would the insurance carrier agree to this? Well, insurance carriers charge a fee for this type of endorsements because they know they will be out funds if a claim is filed. How is this a benefit to the named insured? Well, it would be a benefit to have, for example, if you're a home health company. Let's say your home health company and your employees drive to elderly patients' home to give them care. If your employee gets injured at the home of one of your clients, the insurance carrier pays the claim. You would not want the insurance carrier to try to recoup their funds from that elderly patient or the elderly patient's insurance. It would not look good as a home health care company, especially if the insurance company is constantly suing your clients. This is a good example of when you, as the named insured, would want subrogation waived. The fee for subrogation waived is paid by the named insured. And a lot of times the certificate holder will say you will be denied the contract if it's not included, or things of that nature. However, you really need to make sure that it's required. Sometimes you can negotiate this with your certificate holder. At the bottom of the COI is a section called Description of Operations. A lot of times this box is empty, and that's okay. It's a place on the COI that you can add a project name or project numbers, or if your COI is regarding information on your vehicle, this is where you can put the make, model, year, VIN information as needed. It's just for general information to separate your certificates out when you have numerous jobs or just basic language. Let's take a moment and talk about notice of cancellation. This is very important. The COI the certificate holder receives has the policy effective dates on it. That way they know the named insured has the coverage during the time of the job being performed. Unfortunately, sometimes the named insured cancels their policy mid-term because of expenses, or simply forgets to pay the premium and the insurance carrier drops their coverage for non-payment, or maybe the policy term expired and they hadn't renewed their policy for whatever reason. They have to get insurance again, but while they are doing that, there is a lapse in coverage where they do not have insurance. And that could be the day the claim arises. Adding notice of cancellation to the COI will notify the certificate holder if there becomes a lapse in coverage. An updated COI will be sent with you with an updated policy coverage dates. If you receive a notice of cancellation, then you need to make sure the workers are off the job site until they straighten their insurance out. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Pull them off the job immediately. This is why it's important as an insured to make sure you stay up to date on your coverages. You will look really bad to your clients if they receive these notices, and it could affect or cost you future jobs. Now that you understand what a COI is, the time has come where someone has requested you provide them a certificate of insurance. So what do? You will contact your insurance agent and tell them that you need a COI. Now, you have to have a little bit more than just that. Let's go over a little checklist of the information they will need from you. They will need to know who the certificate holder is. This will be the person you are sending the COI to. Whether it's an individual or business, you will need their business name and full address. This information will go on the certificate at the bottom. Your agent cannot issue a certificate with this information missing. You will also be asked for the certificate holder's email address to send it to, or they can send the certificate to you and forward it to them. It is better to have the agent send it directly to the certificate holder in case there are any issues that arise. You also need to know if the additional insured, subrogation waived, notice of cancellation needs to be added or not, and if there's information that needs to go in the description box. Let's talk about cost. How much is a COI? To the certificate holder, it does not cost anything to request or receive one. The cost is on the back of the named insured and varies between insurance carriers. Additional insured, waiver of subrogation, notice of cancellation, additional named insured, there's usually a fee for these. Depending on how many COIs you do a year, you need to talk to your agent to determine the best way to handle the cost of your certificates. Does the certificate of insurance expire? The COI shows all the carriers you have coverage with. You may have general liability with one insurance carrier and your work comp with another insurance carrier. Each carrier will list the policy dates that you have coverage with, from the date it began to the day it expires, and sometimes these dates vary. Both parties have to pay close attention to these dates. But when a policy is renewed, then the agent or insurance carrier should send a new COI out to all certificate holders they sent to in the past, showing the updated policy dates and possibly increased or decreased coverage limits. So be sure to read everything on your certificate slowly. So to answer your question, yes, they do expire, but they expire at different dates. You might be asking yourself, how long should we keep these COIs? You need to keep them at least 5 years, even if the job only took a couple of months. You will need to show these at audit. You will also need to refer to the COI if an accident or injury occurs down the road. You could get another copy from the agent, but it's the best practice to have the original COI that was sent to you on file. 5 years is a good time frame. However, in this day and age, if you store things digitally, make sure you have a good backup file, and I would recommend archiving or saving them for an extended period of time. Well, we're almost done with all this technical talk, but let's talk about one more thing, and that's the audits. Each year your business will go through an audit, and one of the first things they want to know is, do you use subcontractors? If the answer is yes, they will want to see all of your COIs for each of these subcontractors. They want to make sure that the subcontractors had proper coverage and you were not inadvertently providing coverage for them. If you cannot provide certificates on these subcontractors, then it will affect payroll and you could be charged additional premiums. So it's very important before you go through your audit process to pull all the COIs and make sure you have every single one you need. I know that was a lot of technical information. I wish I could have made that very exciting to listen to, but it's an insurance form. An important form, but it's still an insurance form. So it's not edge of your seat type of information, but again, it's very important. Let's change gears. Lauren is with me. She is my daughter and also producer of these podcasts. So let's talk with her a minute. Lauren, do we have any questions today regarding COIs?
Hey, Dad. That was a lot of information, but I have about 3 questions for you. Alright, so a homeowner is hiring a general contractor to build an additional room and a 2-story deck to their house. The first question is, do they need a COI from the general contractor?
That's a good question. There are a lot of homeowners that are not aware of certificate of insurance and will usually just rely on the contract. Most general contractors will provide a basic COI with the contract. If they don't, it's your responsibility as the homeowner to request it. This is important, especially for large jobs, because when the general contractor sends subcontractors to your home and the sub does not have the coverage, then it falls to the general contractor's coverage. However, many people have been caught where the sub and the general contractor do not have proper coverage. Then it goes up the ladder and falls on the homeowner. As a homeowner, you should talk to your own agent for advice on what coverage you need before the job starts.
Question number 2 is from a person who asked for a COI, got it back, but forgot to ask about putting the project name on it. Can they just handwrite the project name on the COI?
No, you can't. Absolutely not. You should never alter a COI in any way, especially handwriting something on it. It's not a big deal to get a correction. You simply contact the agent again and ask them to correct it. They will send you a new one with the project name or whatever else needs to be corrected or added to the certificate. You know, I've seen people try to print a COI example from Google and type the information themselves. You can't do that. I've seen people take old expired COIs and try to white out and change just the date. And for those of you who don't know what whiteout is, that's the old liquid stuff that you use to erase stuff. You cannot do that. Certificates of insurance must be completed every single time from the authorized agent or the insurance carrier.
So for the third question, a business needs to send out a COI, but they're asking very specific wording to be placed in the description box. Is this normal?
There are some certificate holders that make very extravagant requests for a COI. They have long paragraphs they want you to put in there, and they want you to send it back for corrections if you don't put a comma in the place where they want it. It's really over the top and not what the description of operations box on a certificate is supposed to be used for. Laws vary from state to state on what can or cannot be in the description box. I've seen insurance carriers flat out refuse to add some requests they receive for specific wording. The best thing to do is just see what is being asked, forward the information to your agent, and let them handle it according to what your policy language is and what your state laws are. Okay, question number 3 we just talked about is my biggest pet peeve when dealing with insurance certificates. It's like some certificate holders did a 10-minute Google search online, and now they think they're lawyers. They want to pull 2 sentences out of a contract, one out of the policy, and put it on COI as if it's the law of the land, and making sure that it benefits the COI certificate holder. Well, it just don't work that way. Everybody needs to make sure they have what they need in a contract. It's okay to request things for a COI, but no, just because the certificate holder is demanding it doesn't mean that it's going to be written exactly how they want it on the COI. Specifics regarding insurance and coverages and negotiating different rates and payments should all be addressed in the contract. The COI is not where it needs to be held. I know some of the businesses don't want to make the certificate holder upset. They want to work for them, but it's way better to address these situations up front than getting yourself in a bind with wording on an insurance document that your policy may not even cover. Some of these certificate holders will ask for everything under the sun to try to push as much liability off them, so you need to be careful with these certificates, and I know, and I keep saying it all through this episode, because you're making sure your certificates are correct is important. Talk to your agent or carrier when something doesn't seem right. Well, that's enough insurance talk for now. I could talk about insurance all day long, but I'm sure you need a break. So I'll drop anchor here. Hope you learned something, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for your support of this podcast. For additional information, please visit our website, workcompchaos.com. All links available in the description below. Until next time, fair winds and following seas.